Hi, it's Kia. I invite you to read with me. Today I am reading from the New York Times an article called The New Science of Inflammation. It was written by Kim Tingley, illustrated by Celia Elric, and was written July 29th, 2026. Traditionally, we have sorted diseases into categories, separating contagious from non-contagious illnesses. Acute events like strokes from chronic conditions like asthma, diseases of cell proliferation like cancer, from diseases of cell death like Alzheimer's, and those that affect one organ or bodily system from those that impact another. Our medical disciplines reflect this logic too. But we have lately realized how interconnected the body's systems really are. More and more, researchers are starting to see things the way Peter Libby, a professor at Harvard Medical School and a cardiologist at Mass General Brigham, put it to me. We all study the same disease. Inflammation is involved with everything. That new understanding has inspired countless researchers to look deeper for links between inflammation and the conditions they study. At the same time, the more connections they find, the more their advances fuel a booming wellness industry that profits by marketing anti-inflammatory products and advice. Mainstream media headlines tell us how to fight inflammation by eating these 6 fruits and following those 9 healthy habits. Articles question whether treating inflammation can prevent dementia or reduce depression. Longevity influencers dive into the ills of chronic inflammation on their podcast. On platforms like TikTok and Reddit, users eagerly seek and dispense advice on how to eliminate their chronic inflammation by any means necessary, by fasting or humming or taking ice baths or injecting themselves with copper peptides. They urge one another to avoid ultra-processed foods, plastics, pollution, pesticides, tick bites, loneliness. These are just a few of the suggestions. Kernels of truth can be found in much of this advice. There is evidence that at the population level, the stressors and contaminants of modern life are contributing to chronic inflammation, and that these insults accumulate over time, eventually increasing the risk of disorders related to aging like cancer and cardiovascular and neurodegenerative disease. Inflammation is basically a set of systems that has something going wrong. Last year, a study published in Nature Aging tested people with very different lifestyles. Indigenous populations in non-industrialized regions of Bolivia and Malaysia, and residents in Italy and Singapore for inflammatory markers thought to increase with age and lead to chronic illness. The markers behaved as expected in the developed countries, but while the indigenous groups had the same markers at high levels, they remained steady over their lifespans and did not result in disease. These findings suggest that mutable factors, including inactivity and poor diet, air pollution and other toxins, lack of sleep, and stress, might have an even more significant interaction with chronic inflammation than previously realized. It's quite difficult to tell if any individual has chronic inflammation, however. It's not true that you can observe inflammation in the faces and body movements of American children, as Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claimed at a bill signing event in Texas last year. The administration often refers non-specifically to the potential for inflammation to lead to illness. You can't see or feel it. There's no agreed upon way to measure what your inflammation levels are and how they're changing. Without that information, it's easy to feel perpetually anxious about what inflammation might be doing to you and to see it as a threat you should try to eliminate. We tend to think of this chronic low-grade inflammation as a bad thing that we should suppress with drugs. Alan A. Cohen, a professor of environmental health science and researcher on aging at the Mailman School of Public Health at Columbia University and senior author of the Nature Aging paper, told me. The problem is that inflammation isn't a single entity, a virus or cell we can target with a particular drug or therapy. Instead, it's the product of an incredibly complex regulatory network that we're just beginning to understand. As Cohen put it to me, inflammation is basically a set of systems that says something's going wrong. Turning it off without knowing exactly why it's present, then risk doing more harm than good. Acute inflammation is swift and potent. It announces itself with unmissable symptoms: fever, swelling, redness, heat, pain. These are all signs that your immune system is engaged in battle, destroying invaders or repairing injuries. Without this version of the inflammatory process to protect us, otherwise harmless bacteria or viruses would kill us within days. This inflammatory response is initiated by large immune cells called macrophages. It's showing pictures on here. The only type of immune cell that exists in every major organ of the body when you're born. They play a central role in what is known as the innate immune system, with an evolutionary lineage that goes back some 600 million years. Wow, that's cool. Ooh, I need to show y'all. That's pretty cool. Show y'all. Their main job, when everything is running smoothly, is to gobble up routine cellular waste and clear away damage. Macrophage comes from the Greek for big eater. It's eating them up. When a virus, bacteria, or other threat, like a toxin, shows up in the body, macrophages rush into action. First, they identify and attack the invader. It's showing other things. As they do, they release messenger proteins into the bloodstream that mobilize more immune cells to assist with defense and cleanup. Did you see it again? Messenger. I don't know. I like looking at it. Just me. They also enter bone marrow, where they instruct white blood cells to become macrophages, as well as the hypothalamus, where they initiate fever. And if you have an infectious disease, macrophages will deliver a sample of the invading pathogen to T and B cells in the lymph nodes, which create antibodies to defend against the virus or bacteria. To facilitate all this movement of cells and proteins, blood and lymph vessels expand and become more porous, enabling more immune cells to reach the affected areas and causing tissues to redden, swell, and heat up. Once the immune system has destroyed a pathogen or helped heal a wound, the macrophages direct the body to return to a baseline level of functioning. If all goes well, inflammation disappears. Taking steps to reduce the acute inflammatory symptoms we're all familiar with is rather straightforward. Ice the swelling, take an aspirin. You can see and feel the results almost immediately. But if any step in the process doesn't work right, some inflammation lingers. Though the initial threat appears to be gone, this is low-level chronic inflammation. And why it sticks around is a big question that researchers are getting closer to answering. Hundreds of proteins in different combinations can be involved in chronic inflammation, which is why it can be so hard to detect. And there isn't a way for most people to track those proteins over time to figure out what a healthy or unhealthy state looks like for them. I am going to stop here. There's a lot more to read, but I'm just going to stop here. But thank you for reading with me.